The big tech has a big problem. Fortnite is being sued by a teenage boy over copyrighted dance moves. And Apple, Facebook, Google and Amazon are being investigated by an army of 50 attorneys general for their anti-competitive behavior and monopolizing their market positions. What does copyright trolling a video game has to do with an antitrust probe into the largest technology conglomerates in the world? The Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice tag-teamed Silicon Valley with a clear message. Something's going on and they want to know why. Each of the 4 companies is required to provide a list of 10 competitors to many of their key services and explain why they constitute competition. They also have to surrender 10 years worth of communications related to anything remotely connected to allegations of anti-competitive behavior and antitrust investigations. The investigators are looking to find evidence that the big tech is conspiring to monopolize their market dominance. The question isn't whether they have monopoly market shares, but whether they engage in practices that could lead them to become artificial monopolies. With the investigation ongoing, we can already look at the evidence available to us. Each of the big tech companies is following the same corporate formula. Build a platform with a network effect, aggressively buy out your competitors, and copy and undermine those who refuse to sell. The catch is that while the government is investigating the big tech for being anti-competitive, they're also protecting them from the competition they seek to restore. This is how it works in practice. Facebook started off as a social network for college kids. Within the first few years, Facebook acquired a range of competing social networks, including Connect2 from Winklevoss brothers that initially sued Zuckerberg for copying their work. Some of these were shut down soon after acquisition, others were integrated into Facebook. The last 3 independent startups that could have successfully challenged Facebook's power were Instagram, WhatsApp, and TBH. Facebook also vertically expanded into advertising by purchasing Atlas Ad Network, VR by merging with Oculus, and cryptocurrency by purchasing Chainspace and building LibraCoin. The platform's most valuable asset isn't market share, it's data. And not just personal data on consumers, but arguably even more sensitive business data of their competitors. Ever heard of Onovo, that VPN app offered by Facebook that ended up spying on users instead of protecting their privacy? Well, there is far more into this app than that. Onovo was a crucial industrial espionage tool. Facebook used it to track rival apps and then either copied or acquired rising startups before they could challenge their dominance. This is how Facebook learned to acquire WhatsApp. When Periscope and Meerkat were rising, Facebook copied their models of live video streaming into their own services. When Facebook failed to acquire Snap for $3 billion, they began copying Snapchat's key features, including stories, that were later integrated into Instagram. As soon as that happened, Snapchat's growth began to slow down, and the company has been in the downfall ever since. If Libra succeeds, Facebook will be the first incumbent blockchain and a dominant financial service that businesses won't be able to ignore, which will give Facebook that much more critical insight into any potential future competition. Apple's example proves it's not about the numbers, it's about the conduct. Apple is also in the business of big data, even if they pretend not to be, and they are in the business of copying more than anyone else. Although their core market shares are minuscule, their excellence is at the ability to log their customers in and prevent them from bypassing the Apple's way. Apple became a platform with the launch of the iPhone.
And boy, have we patented it.
Today, the company controls 71% of all revenue generated from mobile apps in the US. For app developers, ignoring iPhone would be like ignoring Google search.
Excuse me for a second.
Apple uses data from the iOS App Store to get intelligence into what apps are rising and what features are popular with their users. Apple invites developers to sell their apps to iOS users for a 30% cut of their revenue. This commission is part of a controversial policy, and critics accuse Apple of artificially inflating prices of iOS apps. Developers are not allowed to bypass the 30% commission by directing customers to other payment methods. If they refuse to pay the commission, they get penalized. They won't be able to update their apps with the latest features or communicate with their users directly, or they can get their apps removed from the store entirely. This policy didn't go without resistance, and Spotify showed the most of it. When Spotify finally agreed to the 30% cut in 2014, they raised their price from $9.99 to $12.99. A year later, Apple launched Apple Music at Spotify's old price, $9.99. Apple also used it to copy Clue, a popular health app for women that was almost at the top of App Store's health and fitness category. Apple copied Clue's core features into their health app that came pre-installed and free of charge on every iPhone. Sherlock, Apple's desktop search tool, took core features from a third-party search app called Watson, which doesn't exist anymore. Getting Sherlocked became a popular term to describe this clandestine tactic that only incumbent platforms can pull off. DoApp used to develop MyLight, a flashlight app that attracted 10 million users. Apple then copied the app's idea and integrated it into iOS. MyLight's revenue went down to zero, and DoApp sold the company in 2016. For years, walkie-talkie apps were popular among iOS users and were offered by several companies. When one of them wanted to integrate their walkie-talkie app with Apple Watch, Apple would not allow it. Sometime later, Apple announced its own walkie-talkie app on Apple Watch. This is the core issue of platforms. They enjoy exclusive access into their proprietary technology that other businesses, by definition, can't compete with. This is where the government is complicit in protecting monopolies of the big tech. They are protecting them by giving them copyright and patent monopolies. Everybody can use those, but multi-billion-dollar conglomerates can afford to spend much more on the legal costs that come with patent registration and copyright enforcement than new startups that want to challenge them. Patent wars have become a signature trademark of big tech. Companies in computer hardware, software, and telecommunications industries have in combination received the most in damages awards from patent disputes. And although the number of patent filings decreased since 2011, grants keep breaking records. Studies emerge showing that patents are damaging to the economy, consumers, and innovation. Startups have received the lowest amount of investment since 2011, and their financing keeps falling. The political demand for stronger protection comes from old established corporations and not new innovative startups. There is a whole industry of lawyers and legal experts whose whole livelihood comes from resolving patent wars and trolls, and it costs taxpayers money in civil lawsuits. There is no statistical evidence that rising patent applications improve the economy or make it more productive. Intellectual property is counterproductive. In the current expanded state, it protects incumbent companies from competition and it stifles innovation. They are no longer competing on the free market. They are rent-seeking, consolidating revenue without creating value.
You look like an alcoholic former weatherman.
Google was investigated by the FTC back in 2012, and the agency's staff report recommended suing the company. The commission unanimously elected not to do that, but the findings are showing nonetheless. The report found Google illegally took content from rival websites such as Yelp, TripAdvisor, and Amazon to improve its own services. The search engine giant copied Amazon's sales rankings, reviews, and ratings. When asked by competitors to stop doing that, Google threatened to pull their content from search, which was enough to silence them. Google violated antitrust law by blocking other search engines from publishing their search results and by blocking advertisers from using their data gathered from Google ad campaigns to be used on rival platforms. The FTC report also found evidence that Google altered its algorithm to derank competition and uprank their own services, which is also against the law. In contrast, the European Union fined Google 3 times for the same violations in total of 8.26 billion euros. Alongside search manipulation, they also bribed phone manufacturers and network operators to get them pre-install Google Search app and Chrome browser on their Android phones. But unlike Apple, Google didn't monopolize the distribution of apps. Google gives developers and consumers a choice to bypass Play Store and even use third-party app stores like F-Droid, a repository of free and open-source apps that respect user privacy and freedom. Android could have been a truly free and open platform. Its core is built on the Linux kernel that is licensed as free software, meaning copyright-free. Anybody can take the code and make any adjustments to it, and even resell it, but they can't make it proprietary. This is the answer of GNU public license to the expanded copyright monopolies. However, anything on top of the Linux base is not licensed under GPL, and developers and vendors can make copyrighted software that never enters public domain and thus never challenges their proprietary monopoly. One of the problems of proprietary software is that any unjust alteration of secret algorithms never sees the light. This was a years-long case inside Amazon, where retail executives pushed the company's engineering team to include profitability in the search algorithm. Amazon's lawyers rejected the proposal out of fear of antitrust regulators. Nonetheless, the decision was made to favor Amazon-branded products and place more profitable items higher in the search rankings. The executives also decided to remove an option for customers to filter search results by relevance. Amazon has been accused by foreign antitrust regulators of abusing sensitive business data as a leverage against them. In some cases, Amazon has discriminated against other retailers by changing their rankings and abruptly terminating their sellers' accounts without proper justification. Amazon is the least profitable company of the big tech, yet somehow still among the most valuable in the world. Amazon has been especially successful in keeping retailers locked inside their ecosystem. Covering marketplace, logistics and delivery, cloud service, and advertising, no book publisher or online seller can afford to go out without bowing to Amazon first. Businesses thus have little choice other than to surrender their business data to a behemoth that will most likely use it against them. Amazon now owns more than 90% market share in several retail categories. Silicon Valley isn't shy to copy other people's work, only to turn around to sue their competition or undermine their business through clandestine trade war tactics. Mark Zuckerberg routinely encourages his developers to copy rival apps. Steve Jobs once famously said,
"We have, always been shameless about stealing great ideas."
And then later declared a thermonuclear war on Android because it's a stolen product. Imagine you are a small business and you have a multi-billion-dollar established corporation threatening to destroy your work. Mark Cuban calls for abolishing software patents altogether, arguing that copyrights protect software from being copied, but patents punish developers who independently develop a program that produces the same results. Richard Stallman traditionally goes much further, arguing for flexible limitations of copyright to 10 years on average, instead of a lifetime of the author as it is globally now. This could span anywhere from 3 years for software to 20 years for a feature film. The Swedish Pirate Party suggests a wholesome copyright reform, where copyright is automatically granted to created works but lasts only 5 years and can be manually extended to last up to 20 years. Copyright and patent laws need to be significantly reformed along the lines of their original purpose: benefit the public and encourage innovation. The current state of copyright is only creating a legal fiction of scarcity of ideas for the sake of profit consolidation. There needs to be a path for all work to enter public domain, because extending government-protected monopolies on ideas inevitably leads to consolidation of market power and unfairly affects small businesses who can't afford the same legal armament as big corporations.